Hello everyone, welcome to Tales from the Albright, a podcast by the Scranton Public Library. Today we have kind of a nostalgic episode and we're here with Brianna.
Hello.
So we'll be talking about Twilight.
All things Twilight.
Because that's the age that we are.
Yeah.
What's your first memories of Twilight?
I remember reading it in middle school because it came out in, was it 07, 08? I think. Now you got to fact check us and tell us what year the book came out. Because the movie came out a little after.
Yes.
So the books...
The book was published in 2005,
okay.
Which would make sense because I heard about it in 8th grade.
I was going to say, I would have been like 8 then. So yeah. I think I heard about it, or I started getting into it when I was a little older. Like I probably would have been in about 8th grade when I actually read it. And I remember that it was like the first like more adult romance series that my mother let me read. And all of my friends and I got addicted to it. And I was very into creative writing in middle school. So what we did was my best friend she loved to draw and I loved to write. So we imagined our friend group as vampires.
Oh my gosh.
And we I wrote the stories and she illustrated them and like made our vampire characters. So we like came up with our own origin stories, the way that they have for all of the characters in the Twilight books. And it was convenient because there was like 6 of us. So it was like a convenient, like that perfect number where we each had our own thing. And we each, like one of us was like the Carlisle of the group. And like, it was so fun. So that's my early memories of it. I was obsessed.
See, I came at it from a very different perspective.
What was your perspective?
So I had read Amelia Atwater Rhodes' vampire series, which the first one I read was In the Force of the Night. And I was really looking for more just like vampire books. Okay. Because I don't know if the podcast listeners or viewers know I was very deeply emo.
That was your upbringing.
Yes. So I was in like a My Chemical Romance chat room and this girl was like, I have a book. And I was like, what's the book? And she's like, Twilight, you need to read it. So I went to Barnes and Noble and I bought Twilight. There were no sequels at this point.
Really?
Really. Like New Moon was like kind of a vague rumor. But there were no plans for any sequels. That was when Stephanie Meyer was very much like, this is going to be a standalone series. So I read it, and then I made everyone else read it. And that was my experience with Twilight.
Yeah, see, I caught it when it was at least slightly more of a cultural phenomenon, I think, than you. You were like the secret underground, learned about it when it first came out vibe. Okay. I like it.
The Twilight hipster.
Yeah, you're a Twilight hipster. I like that a lot.
I mean, then it continued because then it was books, and then it was very excited for movies, and I feel like I started to lose it around Breaking Dawn.
Oh, okay.
Because I was starting to like age out.
See, I don't feel like, maybe because I was younger when it came out, but I enjoyed it thoroughly through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So much so that I think I've told you this before. But I read all of the 4 books. And then I went back and reread them, but each time I wouldn't really want to go back to the beginning, so I'd start farther in. So I read 1 through 4, then I read 2 through 4, then I read 3 and 4, and then I just reread 4. So I read a lot of Breaking Dawn, and I remember enjoying that one. And I was obsessed with the novella, which is the short second life of Bree Tanner, because her name's Bree. So that's me. So I liked her book. But I was too old by the time that Midnight Sun was a thing, and there was all of that drama that it got leaked, and then she wouldn't release it, and now we have Midnight Sun. So I actually have never read that one.
But I believe that she had like the first 3 chapters of it posted.
I think she did, and then they it was like half the book though, or more than half the book that got leaked. It was like a lot of it, and she was unhappy.
And then it's now released as an actual title on its own.
Now it's its own actual
Which
book.
I bought, and I didn't read, and it's sitting there, and I need to.
Yeah, I only read some of the leaked stuff online when it first happened, and I have not read the actual book. It's very long. It's much longer than Twilight,
really
I feel like. I don't have Twilight to share for the video viewers because it's checked out right now. But I did bring the movie Twilight, which they look like babies in this
really
DVD
do.
cover. I can't believe it. The graphic novel, which is more like a manga-style graphic novel, just not back to front, but like the illustrations, Twilight, and Twilight Saga, the official illustrated guide. So I thought that was a fun one. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Twilight was no bigger than this. But Midnight Sun is like twice as big as this. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah, and then there was also Life and Death, which was the gender swapped one. And I did read that one.
Oh, see, I did not read that one. I did not.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean,
Okay.
it pretty much was the same.
The same story, just the opposite? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The ending was a little bit different, but that's it. So now on to the actual book. How did you feel going through it this time?
So I got a lot of nostalgia, I will say. Like when I first started, so I did the audiobook this time because I've gotten more into audiobooks as an adult. And I actively found myself like wanting to continue reading it, which I didn't expect to happen. I thought, especially since as I read them initially, got bored by the first one and I was like, oh, that's not interesting. Like I didn't expect to enjoy it so much, but it got to the point where now I really want to watch. I think I'm gonna take this home because I really want to watch the movie again. And it's on like no streaming services, so get it at the library. So I want to watch it again, and I kind of want to listen to the rest of the audiobooks because it was just, this is gonna be a controversial statement. I actually quite like her writing style. Like I know
It's very easy.
Yes, I know everyone bashes a lot of the like YA authors for having that like too easy, too cliche. And I do think some things are cliche. There have been a couple books for the podcast. Especially we were gonna do a different YA book for this.
Yeah, and it didn't work out well.
I started reading it and I was like, Alyssa, this is just so cringy. Like I can't do that. But this was like, I don't know, maybe the nostalgia like colors it for me, but I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I didn't remember Bella being as funny as she is.
Yes, that is part of it. She has so much more personality, I feel like, in the books, and I liked that a lot.
I think it became the like popularity of Twilight and the movie and people making fun of the movie that really diminished how absolutely dry humor she is throughout the entire book, and it's hilarious.
Yep. Oh, I know. My favorite one that I remember now is the one where, what did he say? Something about, let's get something to eat, and she like faked him out, and then like as if, and then he was like, and I'm like, it was so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she is, like her character is just so much, no offense to Kristen Stewart, but her character is just way more interesting in the books than they portray her in the movies. I don't know if that's director or writer or actor choices. I don't know.
I think it's kind of just the fact that you have to cut things out of the movie, and you can't, the book's told from her perspective.
Right.
So you can't really include that inner dialogue.
That's true.
And I think that's where a lot of the sass came from too.
True. Well, and the problem is that they chose, like you choose a tone. And I feel like the tone of the book is actually a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Whereas the tone of the film went for very like dark, brooding, serious in a way that I think, like Harry Potter is a good example of like the books and the movies, I'd argue both, start much lighter and as they progress get much darker.
Yeah.
And like I've seen super cool diagrams of the cinematography of like how even just the visuals get darker. Whereas this one, I feel like the books,
blue.
Yeah, the books, yeah, that's true. And the problem is, to me, the books start lighter and get more serious as they go along, especially with the way Breaking Dawn goes. But like, I feel like the movies just take that and ramp it even darker and like bluer, I guess.
Yeah.
In a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
And that's what bothers me, because I'm like, I'm curious to watch the movie. I did go on YouTube and watch some random clips from the movie. But also, and I will state this because it may come up, I was a Jacob stan when I read the books.
Yeah.
I did not like Edward. I was not, like, I liked the plot.
I was the opposite.
But see, I was like, ew, Edward, no. And Jacob was my favorite. But yeah.
Yeah. I feel like out of the choice of those two, Edward was my favorite. But my real favorite, and I believe we agree on this, was Jasper.
Yes. Jasper is my hands down favorite. Oh yeah.
And I feel like I remembered I loved him so much as a youth. Yeah. And then like movie version of Jasper he was fine.
Yeah.
Like, but I feel like at the end of Twilight, when they're like in the car and stuff, and he's actually just like being like super chill and kind, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why he was my favorite.
Yes. I liked him a lot. Yeah. I feel like The interesting thing about the characters of Twilight is that a lot of them fall into tropes and stereotypes, but then the ones that don't really don't. Like, I don't know what trope Jasper would be. To me, he just kind of defies all logic.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he's so cool. Whereas I feel like Emmett and Rosalie are just solid tropes. Like, they are to a T, like pretty blonde that's kind of not nice.
Yeah.
I'll say. Not nice blonde and pretty, and then he is like dumb jock guy.
Yeah.
And they fit those. Whereas Alice is even, she's like manic pixie dream girl, quirky, and Jasper, I'm just like, what are you? That's what I like about him a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle to figure out.
And Edward's just basic. Part of me, I think, couldn't like Edward because he's the hero. I never, in all the books and movies, like I never liked the
That's
main
fair.
male lead. I think I needed something else. I can't be just one of those girls who was Team Edward. That couldn't be me. I say with a lot of sarcasm right now. Anyway, I'm sorry, I've derailed us a lot of ways already.
You're fine. Yeah, I think the real shining star of the movies and the books is Charlie.
Oh, that's a recent thing.
It is a recent thing. But I think it's just because everyone's getting older.
Yep.
And they appreciate that Charlie actually was trying his best the entire time.
My favorite like recent trend is when girls are like, when you debated whether you were Team Edward or Team Jacob, and now you're like, I'd just take Charlie or Carlisle, and you're like, okay.
I do remember people being obsessed with Carlisle though.
Yes, he was popular even then. Now I think the Charlie and the dad stash, I think that's becoming more of a now thing. Yeah. Yeah, because they make him kind of bumbling initially.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you read it as a teenager, you're like, oh, he's such an awkward dad who's like, what is he even doing? He's so overprotective and awkward.
Because I think that's how you view your parents when you're a teenager too.
Yes, whereas like Carlisle's not like Carlisle's like cool dad who's like not a dad, but like 600 years old.
Yes.
So like, kind of dad, kind of great-great-great-great-great-granddad, you know?
I just always think about Carlisle hiding in the stack of potatoes in his story.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, hold up. What book did you read? Yes, I did forget about that. Yeah, you're right.
Because I was fascinated by his backstory. I remember initially when I went through and on rereads, I'm always fascinated by the side characters' backstories instead of like Edward and Bella.
Same.
Although I did forget that Edward was from Chicago.
Yes. Yeah, I knew he was American in some form. Because the only one who's not American is Carlisle, right? I think he's
I believe so,
because he's like so old it's European. But I'm sorry, I don't know why I found that funny. But no, I was the same way. I was obsessed, and that's part of why I will say of the 4 books, Eclipse is my favorite.
Yes.
Partially because we get more. I think it's Rosalie and Jasper's backstories.
Yes.
We get to explore more in those. So I would agree with you. I liked those. However, I did forget a lot of Carlisle's because his is interesting, but like I wasn't a Carlisle stan, so I didn't.
I remembered Carlisle's the entire time, but I also think it's because I have a fascination with like early witch hunts in Europe.
Fair. Valid.
So I'm like, oh yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, that's true. And I always forget Esme's because I feel like hers is just so, like, it seems so random at first. It makes sense in the book, like, when you get to read it again, but I forget those two.
Yeah.
Because they're the parents, and nobody pays attention to parents, I feel like. But yeah.
Yeah, speaking of parents, on my reread, I didn't realize how, like, flighty Renee was. Yeah. And then how, like, parentified Bella was.
Yeah.
Until the reread, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah, they really do, I think. I don't know if they miss it a bit in the movies, but it's true that you could tell she was very independent and just had to take care of herself. And yeah, like the way she cooks meals for Charlie and stuff, I'm like, wow, she is like a little mini adult in these books. So I guess it checks out in the way they try and pitch her as like, oh, she's older than she is. And because doesn't she say that at one point that her mom said she's like older?
Yeah, like 35 and getting older every year.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, it is. The parenting is questionable there. Yep. Even like, speaking of other parents, Billy Black, I'm like, what you doing, Billy? Because I want to understand he does all this protective stuff, but he's like really creepy and ominous the whole time when he like sends ominous messages to her and like sends Jacob to her dance in the epilogue and is like, warn her. And it's like, warn her what? Just warn her. And you're like, okay, Billy, this is a little bit of an overprotective dad moment. Maybe he and Charlie just have like, they're in cahoots on it.
Well, I think Charlie doesn't know the whole vampire thing.
Oh God, no.
Billy Black knows the vampire thing, and it's like, this girl's gonna die.
That's true. That's true. But the way he goes about it, I think, is just strange to my brain. It's very ominous plot sort of way. But yeah, the parents in this book are strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, for some reason, it really hit me that she's actually from Arizona when she started making fajitas, and I was like, that seems out of place for the Olympic Peninsula. And then I was like, wait, it's not.
Yep. I know. I can't, and it's funny a lot to see when she like goes back and she's like, oh yes, I love all the dead brush. And you're like, oh, interesting. Okay. Now we see why you complained about forks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bella just likes dead things.
She does. That's a connection. That's like literature class level connection, and I like that a lot. Setting, reflecting our characters. Oh.
Yeah, so I feel like now is the time to bring up.
Here we go. Buckle your seatbelts, listeners and viewers.
That I went to Forks, and it's actually a very nice town.
And they have the Twilight Museum.
They do have the Twilight Museum, so you can go in. I believe it's free. I don't remember paying for it.
Yeah.
The town itself raised funds to buy costumes and set pieces. My favorite part was Edward's sunglasses. I don't know why.
Not the Renesmee doll?
Chuck Esme.
Chuck Esme, yeah.
Her official name.
Yeah.
No, that doll is scary. Don't say that to the doll because she will haunt you.
And we know that, yeah.
Yeah, it's. But yeah, that was fun. Yeah, the doll is creepy. This cup is from Forks. Highly recommend. Yeah, I went out there with my one best friend, and we had a great time. We went hiking, and that's another thing that I found interesting is having been there compared to the geography in the book.
Yeah.
It kind of didn't line up in my brain.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like in a lot of books and movies, the way they depict a place, and then if you actually were to go there, it's not.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know. But we will end this episode here, and then I will continue going on my random spiel about the layout of Forks and how my Twilight trip apparently went. And then we will talk about the music related to Twilight, because that is a major component as Stephanie Meyer was writing it and then through today. So
awesome.
If you have any questions, comments, have your own opinions on Twilight, please comment below or send us a message on our social medias, or just email me at aloney@albright.org. That is ALONEY@albright.org, or feel free to call the library at 570-348-3000. Thank you.